So we've made it to the end of the year, and that means today I'm going to give you my list of the 10 movies that surprised me the most this year. So let's talk about it. So every new year, we start off with certain movies that we are just excited to see, whether because we loved the trailer, it's a sequel to a movie we loved the cast. For whatever reason, there's always movies we are excited to see. And sometimes they live up to the excitement and other times they don't, but they were movies that we had positive anticipation for going into the year. And then each year, there's always these little nuggets, these movies we discover along the way that either weren't on our radar at all, or we were not looking forward to them because the trailer looked bad, and then you finally see them, and they're just such pleasant surprises. That's what this video is all about. Me giving you my picks for those movies that either I thought were going to be terrible, didn't think were going to happen, or weren't on my radar at all, and I end up being very pleasantly surprised. Before I give you my list, go ahead and tell me yours down below in the comment section. Which movies just surprised you? And kind of tell us why. Kind of give us a little bit of background of where you're coming from with each of the movies you put on your list. Also, as this is the end of the year, all throughout this week, I'm putting out my best of, worst of, most disappointing, biggest surprise, this one right here. A couple of days ago, I put out my comic book movies ranking for the year. All of those can be found in this playlist up above, and they will be dropping throughout this week. With that said, let's get started talking about my biggest surprises. Kicking things off at number 10 is Creed 2. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I love the Rocky franchise. I was a huge fan of the original Creed. And so the fact that this movie's on this list might be pretty surprising in and of itself to you. But hear me out on this one. I didn't put Creed 2 on my most anticipated list for 2018 for two simple reasons. First off, I didn't think it was going to come out this year. Second, I was worried it was going to be bad. And the reason for all of this is that the pre-production had been rocky at best, no pun intended. And basically Stallone had been posting on his Instagram that he was writing the script and then it was going to be a follow-up to Rocky IV and all sorts of things like that that just made it sound like he was doing some pet project, but there wasn't a lot of like big studio production stuff for it. Ryan Coogler wasn't involved with it really anymore besides like a little producer role on it. And then they announced finally that Stallone was going to direct it. And a month later, he was kicked out because they wanted a millennial to direct the film, which Stallone was never even close to a millennial. And so that's really weird that they would hire him and so soon afterwards replace him with someone so much younger for such a specific reason. So I was worried that this movie was going to be kind of a train wreck. And I didn't think it was going to hit its release date for 2018. And then it came out, and all of my fears, all of my speculation, all of that was totally unfounded. They found a way to ground Rocky IV and almost make Rocky IV a better movie. It's a great continuation of both Rocky IV as well as the original Creed. Delivers all the things that I enjoy out of this franchise. A little bit of a different take on it because of the ability of the passing of time and passing of the baton in two different families in this one. Just made for a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was totally wrong to speculate that things were falling apart. And so this one actually really did surprise me. Coming in at number 9 is Instant Family. Now, this is a movie that for the most part wasn't really on my radar until I was invited to the press screening. And then I looked the movie up and I found out it was from the director of Daddy's Home 1 and 2 and from the writer of Dumb and Dumber 2. And I just saw all of that and I went, another just throwaway comedy that has absolutely no value to it. And sometimes I can be amused by these types of movies. Like I'm amused by the Daddy's Home movies, but they're very shallow. They're just throwaway cheap gags from beginning to end. And that's what this movie looked like from just looking at director of Daddy's Home partners up again with Mark Wahlberg and a quick glimpse at the trailer. And then I watched the movie and it has a lot more heart to it than his previous work did and kind of tackles adoption in a manner that's a lot more realistic, grounded than I was expecting at all. And as it turns out, the director of the film, it's loosely based on his own experience adopting 3 kids all at once. And he kind of wanted to tackle that in a way that showed what that looks like, the pain, the joy, all of it. And so this was a movie that had a much bigger heart than I was expecting, a lot more emotion than I was expecting, a lot more reality to it than I was ever thinking the guy from director of Daddy's Home 2 was ever going to deliver to the big screen. And so I was very pleasantly surprised with this one. It was also kind of a fun little adventure for me because I actually went to go see it with my mother-in-law. She's a big fan of Mark Wahlberg. And so we got to go see this one at a press screening and do something fun with her. So it was also a pleasant little experience. Number 8 is Crazy Rich Asians. This is another one that wasn't really on my radar at all. It's not a genre I typically gravitate towards. And when I was invited to the press screening, I told my wife, let's go see it. And I mildly remembered the trailer just a little bit, but I couldn't have told you any of the jokes, any of the cast, anything like that. And so I went into the theater pretty fresh without too many expectations. And it was just a real delightful film, and a film that transcends what you typically expect from the genre. A lot of them are based around contrived differences between two people, and then they come together. And that's not really what this movie is at all. It has the romance that you want in a rom-com, and it has the humor that you want in a rom-com, but the actual drama and tension inside of it are based off of actual cultural differences that exists in the community that was being explored in the film, in which case it all rang a lot truer. It had a lot more depth to it. It had something to say. It wasn't just throwaway shenanigans thrown up on the screen. And so by the end of the film, when you get to the conclusion to everything, it's a lot more satisfying. The jokes land with a little bit more oomph to them because you feel like you're watching something that has truth to it. And so this one, to me, was one that I was not looking forward to. It was just like, oh, cool, date night with my wife. And then I thoroughly enjoyed the movie myself. At number 7 is Game Night. Now, this is a film that was on my radar. I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that looks pretty amusing. I like Rachel McAdams. I like Kyle Chandler. I like Jason Bateman. And so all of that kind of had me intrigued, and it seemed like there's some little teases of some other actors like Jesse Plemons in there that would have some nice little cameos. But then I saw it was from the director of Vacation, the one that came out 3 years ago. And I didn't hate that movie like a lot of people, but it's by no means like a great comedy. So I was assuming that this movie was going to be another styleless throwaway comedy. And it's kind of the opposite of that. It's a highly stylized movie. Like as you go through the film, the way it transitions from scene to scene, it uses kind of this board game map sort of visual to go from place to place. It's just a really cool little way to take the concept of the movie and visualize transitions in the film. For that matter, also, the action sequences are actually action sequences. They're not comedy, typical set pieces that aren't choreographed. These are real action sequences. There's a real chase in the movie. And so while it's a movie that the setup feels like another just kind of generic throwaway comedy, the way that they executed it with the style, the action, even the humor itself has a very distinct flavor to it. And so this was a much better film than I was expecting it to be, so it makes it onto this list. Coming in at number 6 is A Star Is Born. When I first heard about this one, I was thinking to myself, really? They're remaking this one for the 7,000th time? And then I heard Bradley Cooper was directing it, and it's his directorial debut, and then Lady Gaga was gonna star in it. And I just thought to myself, oh, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? And then I saw the trailers and I was like, okay, this looks like they're really going for it. They're trying to do this right. And then I saw the movie and it really wowed me. For me, this is probably the movie that had the broadest emotional spectrum for me. What I mean by that is that it has joy, triumph, it has romance, it has despair, tragedy. It has so many different emotions in it, and all of them landed for me. The music's great. For the last 3 months straight, I've been listening to the soundtrack of this film during my car rides places. And so this was a movie, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know why we're doing this. This is a waste. This is exactly what Hollywood needs to stop doing. And then I saw the film and I was like, all right, you were right. You had something to say here. You had some music you wanted to share with the world, and you were able to draw out the emotions from me. So I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. Bringing us into the top 5 is Upgrade. For me, this is the out of nowhere pick on this list. Like, I had not seen the trailer for it. I think I'd heard the title, but I could not have told you a single detail about this film. And then one day I was at work and my good friend Cody Leach messaged me and he said, dude, you got to go see Upgrade as soon as you can. Go in without knowing anything about it. Sci-fi action, that's all you need to know. Just go and see it. And so as soon as I got off work, I drove to the movie theater and he was absolutely correct. This is my type of movie. And by not seeing the trailer, it really enhanced the experience of watching this movie for the first time. Because it's not that the trailer spoiled a bunch of plot twists and turns, but there's just some things about the inherent nature of the movie itself that I was watching it for the first time. I was like, oh, that's where this is going. Oh, that's what the type of movie this is. This is awesome. And whether you're talking about the way the action is choreographed and shot in this very specific way that's very cool, or the way the script, it's crafted really nicely. Not this big ambitious story or anything like that, but what is there, every little plot detail, everything you see ties back together in kind of the mystery of what's going on inside of the film. For me, this is the type of movie that I watch it and I think to myself, this is the type of movie I would want to make. When people ask me, what would you want to make? I don't want to make big blockbusters. I don't want to make a Star Wars movie. That's just, it's still too big for me. But a movie like this with a distinct style, a nicely crafted story that's a little bit clever in the way it's told, this is the type of movie that I want to make. If you like sci-fi action, I highly recommend you check out this film. It's got some RoboCop, it's got some Death Wish, it's a bunch of that type of stuff crammed together, and it's from the guy that wrote the original Saw film, and so it's got a nice harshness to it. Such a pleasant surprise. I highly recommend it. Coming in at number 4 is Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse. Now, this is a movie that at different times had me very worried for very different reasons. First off, I found out Sony was making an animated Spider-Man film, and it just felt like a cheap cash grab because they haven't had the best track record with Spider-Man movies over the past 10 years. There have been some good moments in there and some not so good moments. And the fact that they cut the deal with Marvel Studios, they don't have full control over their kind of mainline Spider-Man franchise. And so it seemed like they were trying to do all these side things just as a quick, easy way to make some Spider-Man money. And then I find out they're doing Miles Morales, and I just kind of, okay, the mainstream doesn't really know him. Are they just doing this because they have to? Do they have a good angle? Or is it like, okay, we got to do something different, so we'll do the animated Miles Morales. So that had me worried. And then some of the early trailers, I went, okay, that looks pretty cool, what they're trying to do here. And as the trailers progressed, then they put the one out that had all the different spider people in it from the SpiderVerse. And when I saw that, I was like, this is getting too weird. Like, I don't know what they're trying to do with this movie, but this does not look like a good idea for a movie right here. Which is why I talk about movies. I don't make movies because sometimes I am horribly wrong in my predictions about things, because this movie was just phenomenal. I mean, they nailed it. They found an animation style combined with a story to tell that they could do something new with Spider-Man. Spider-Man has been well played out on the big screen, and they found a way to still do something wildly fresh and original with the character that has fun with that rich history of past films. And so while I had all these reservations about this film, everything I was nervous about, I was totally wrong. They knocked this one out of the park. Real quick before I give you my top 3, tell me your biggest surprises down below in the comments section. What are those movies that you thought were going to be terrible, or you didn't know anything about, that just surprised you at how good they actually were? We're definitely going to have very different lists on this one. Hopefully you guys can introduce me to some movies that I didn't even hear about, so please share down below in the comment section. Also, remember to come back all this week for the rest of my end of year videos, best, worst, disappointment, all that fun stuff. It'll be up here in this playlist if you're watching this in the future. Kicking off our top 3 is Bumblebee. So last year, I'm pretty sure that the movie I listed as the worst of the year was Transformers: The Last Night. Now, the movie has a little bit of the it's so bad it's good for me factor, and so it has a little bit of rewatchability because it's so insane, and like the Nazis show up and then there's King Arthur. Just such a weird, bizarre movie that they came up with. But basically, a few years back, they announced that they came up with this brainstorming session with all of these different screenwriters of television movies, came together to come up with a bunch of ideas for Transformers movies, and the first thing that they released out of that was Transformers: The Last Night, which is just this insane mess. So when I found out they're doing a Bumblebee movie, I was not excited. A prequel, it's coming out of the same insane group of people that came up with all these bad ideas, not anticipating it at all. And it's a franchise that just feels like it's run out of gas. It's just running on fumes, and they are just creatively bankrupt. And then the trailer started to win me over a little bit, and then the movie itself is very pleasant. For me, it's easily the best of the Transformers movies they put out thus far. The one that has the best characters in it, the best human emotions to it. And because you care about the characters and the emotions to it, the action itself is even better because it's not just big, gigantic explosions where you're not sure who's doing what or why they're doing it. No, you know every character that's in each of these scenes and what their goal is, what their objective is. And so this movie was just, as I said in my Bumblebee review, the biggest comeback of the year goes to the Transformers franchise because this movie really was an example of what this franchise could be, should be, hopefully will be continuing on in the future. Its opening weekend, it did not do well. It did really bad, actually. So I'm a little bit nervous that if it doesn't end up having great legs, that it could be in danger of the studio learning their lesson. Like, okay, we made a great movie. No one went to go see it. We made a crappy movie with big explosions and it made a ton of money. So hopefully that's not the lesson that the studio gets from this one. But as for this movie, so pleasantly surprised. Our runner-up is Searching. This is a movie that whenever the trailer would come on in the theater, I would start to roll my eyes like, okay, another thriller about a missing daughter, another movie using one of these gimmicks about webcams and a person just sitting at a computer. This looks awful. Like, I don't want to sit for 2 minutes through this trailer, let alone sitting through the entire movie. And I was actually invited to a press screening for it that the director was going to be at, and I ended up passing on it. I went to a different press screening, but like I could have been there with the director, but I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this movie. I'll go see this other movie where the director's not at it. And then I finally saw the movie, and once again, recurring theme here, boy, was I wrong. From the very beginning of the movie starts, and within the first minute, you're like, oh, wow, you so understand the way people interact with their computers and have used technology. And I'm connecting with this in your family in the first minute as you're booting up a computer. And the whole movie plays out like this, just such creative storytelling and understanding where people look at screens and how they interact with icons so that you actually remember the details on the screen and usernames, all sorts of things that in most movies you might miss it, but because of the storytelling mechanism here, you have to catch these details, and you do. So as you get into the second half of the movie and there start being reveals and answers to questions, they're earned. The movie's not cheating. It actually showed you all of it. You can put it together. You're putting it together as our lead actor character is putting it all together. And so this is a movie that I just thought did a great job. It fully accomplished what it was trying to do and showed that you can do these persons sitting there talking to the computer movies and tell a great story that's compelling, that's interesting, even when tackling a well-worn genre like the missing daughter genre. This movie did it. It's continuing to expand the way that we tell stories on the big screen. But coming in first place is Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So I've seen a whole bunch of this show because I have kids, and a year ago we were in a hotel for a wedding out of town, and that was all that was on TV was Teen Titans Go, and so we were stuck there being tortured watching Teen Titans Go. So shortly afterwards, after that event, I heard they were making a movie. I was like, oh my goodness. 90 minutes of this, a single story without a break. Oh, this is going to be bad. Then they put the trailers out, and I think one of them I thought had some mildly amusing moments in it, and the other one was just as juvenile as everything in the TV show. Nothing that made me think that there could be more to it. And then I went to go see the movie with my kids, and it might be the most I laughed in the theater this year. And so I went from, oh my goodness, whoa, why is this happening? Why do I have to watch this? To, wow, I'm laughing an awful lot at a Teen Titans movie. And so this one to me just kind of floored me right there in the theater. Like, I can't believe I'm laughing this much. Now, it is juvenile, it's base level humor at times, but there's also commentary on the genre itself, about celebrity culture, about comic book movies. It touches on a whole bunch of different things, and some of it's even predictive in there. There's a joke about them making an Alfred movie. There's an Alfred TV show in the works. And so there's a certain smartness and intelligence inside of what they're doing that it can easily get missed inside of the fart jokes and the poop jokes that are in there. And so for me, this one absolutely didn't just surprise me, shocked me at how much I enjoyed this film. I actually rewatched it yesterday, and it still had me laughing out loud at different parts. And so for me, because I was so not looking forward to this movie, and it It did its job. It made me laugh, so it is definitely the biggest surprise of 2018. Be sure to come back tomorrow for my biggest disappointments of the year. In the next few days, I'll have the worst, best, most anticipated, all that fun stuff. Or if you're watching in the future, it's all in that playlist right over there. Thank you so much for watching. Come back next year and let's keep talking movies too much.